Hi. Now I've unmuted myself. This will really help. So it's calling to order the Faculty Advisory Committee meeting for August the 19th. We're beginning at 1:05 p.m. Lois, do we have a quorum?
I'm working on that right now. I
Good.
think we do, yes.
Okay. So let me just share the screen for the minutes of the last meeting. Can you see them properly? Again, for some reason, I can never see it on my second screen. I'll just scroll through it. Are there any changes or amendments to the agenda for the July meeting? If not, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that carries. And one abstain. There's an abstention somewhere? Okay. Secondly, I'm going to share the agenda for today's meeting. It doesn't tell me where it is.
Maureen has a hand up.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see that.
I'm sorry, I can't get it back down. I was trying to.
Okay.
To the minutes. See if I can get it down. Lower hand. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. I hope this is the agenda that you're seeing. I'm flying blind here. So the minutes of the meeting, that was the first item. Approval of agenda, this is this item. Report on the colleges from Colina. The realignment of regional CSC presidents, the reinstatement of the Manchester CEO, resolution on department chairs, accreditations of constituent colleges, then report on universities. We wanted to have a report on the situation at Western Connecticut State University, the board resolution on COVID-19, which was sent as an attachment. There has been some additional questions about the problem of monkeypox as a public health emergency. Fifth item was the FAC conference, planning and topics, and sixth was other business. Are there any modifications to the agenda? If not, I'll just have a motion pro forma to approve it.
Motion to approve.
Lois? Okay. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, let's go on with the agenda then. So we're going to begin with the report on the situation in the colleges from Colina. Let me just stop sharing here. Colina, do you want to go ahead?
Sorry, I was muted. Sure. So let me just, I was trying to go in the order of what you had on the agenda, David, and
Yeah,
lost
the
it,
first
but-
one was a realignment of regional presidents, the reinstatement of the Manchester CEO.
Okay.
That was
yeah.
the CSCC or CSCU notice of August I think the 12th.
Gotcha. Right. So in the past week, I know that I can put a couple of articles in the chat in a second, but those of us at the community colleges got this email on realignment. I'm sorry, I didn't forward it to the whole of the committee. I just forwarded it to David, but recently, but I'll share it with you later, but I can go through the content of it now. So
Yeah, I can
there's-
put it on screen as well.
great. So there's been a realignment of the system that actually is a positive of change structurally. The 3 regional presidents have been moved into different roles as executive vice presidents. Dr. Coley, who was the regional president for my area, and I don't even remember what they were, South something forget that. The Thomas Coley is going to be Executive Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Enterprise Performance. Lumbella is Workforce and Economic Development, and Rob Steinmetz is College Services and Student Affairs. And then there's some other appointments, right? So Ann Harrison's Associate Vice President of Communications and Strategic Marketing. A lot of us know Tamika Davis, and she's Interim Vice President of Enrollment Management. Our interim provost is going to stay in place till June of 2023, etc. Scott Kalicki is Interim Vice President for Campus Operations. And then Nicole Esposito, I think we all knew about the lawsuit that had been going on for the past year or so. And it went in her favor. She's been reinstated as CEO of Manchester Community College. And this is, you know, all kind of aligned fairly well in terms of the fact that I believe, according to the news, one of the terms of her reinstatement is that she's no longer supervised by Rob Steinmetz. So that is no longer the case, and it was before this realignment of the system. So yeah, so that's it for realignment. I don't know if anybody has more to add about the structure, but and you can stop sharing, David. I mean,
Okay, I see that Lois has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Lois.
I just want to note that I have been made aware of the fact that there is actually a regional meeting going on or went on this morning.
Okay.
I don't know anything about it. I don't know who was supposed to run it. I don't know what, why, where, what, you know, what the point was, but I was told that there was a regional meeting today.
Well, I'll say, you know, with the, it's not clear. So the regional presidents have gone away, but there was supposed to be this whole regional structure that went with the regional presidents. And on reflection of like how that would be dismantled and realigned, now that they have moved, it really wasn't clear how much actually, how many of these positions actually reported to the regional presidents. But if they did, it might make some sense to to go through a process of dissolution, right? Because we still have regional positions, right? There are regional like
Counselors?
yeah, counselors, yeah, and things like that. So I don't know how that process is going to go through.
Well, I'm also curious as to who would be running the meeting since the regional president is no longer a regional president.
No idea. Okay.
All of these changes will have to be approved, I think, at least for the regional presidents at a Board of Regents meeting, because they were named as regional presidents at a Board of Regents meeting. And so it seems to me that this is a question that we'll ask at the next BOR, and indeed, we can do that by email with the appropriate people before that meeting. It certainly rationalizes their number of levels of presidents, because up to now there was, in effect, 4 levels: the CEOs, i.e., former presidents, the regional presidents, the CSCC president, and the CSCU president. This eliminates one of those levels, but it also creates a fairly top-heavy administrative structure in CSCC, where you have a president, executive vice presidents, associate vice presidents, and so forth. So that is also a question I think we need to request some clarification about.
Yeah, it was also a significant aspect of the proposal to NETCHI, which I think is interesting. So that'll be a modification, but whatever. All right.
I think there was a question. Was there any other questions? Okay. Selena, you can go ahead.
Okay. And I mean, there are going to be questions, and I guess we have the ability to sort of forward them to the appropriate people. So if they come up, please let us know. David, two things. Can you, for some reason, I'm not clear on whether I have emailed, if I have the right email address for Rotua that keeps coming up and autofilling for me. Could you forward the agenda and link to her?
Okay, hang on a second.
Thank you. Okay, and the other thing is the resolution on department chairs. So,
Yeah, I can put that up. Hang on a second.
yeah. So this is a resolution that I believe it was circulating in May, and was approved at, I believe, in either exactly this text or in spirit by 10 community colleges. I believe it was considered by, some endorsement by CSUA, UP also, that I do not have final confirmation that it was endorsed. And this is just a request that we're seeing your desktop right now, David,
Oh.
but not the resolution.
Okay, I will try again.
And I know we all had this ahead of time, so we don't have to read the whole thing. But I will read the first whereas and
Is that-
yes,
Okay.
and the resolve. So it's whereas the proposed CT state academic leadership structure proposes to eliminate campus-based academic departments and eliminate campus-based faculty department chairs. And the rest, I hope you read ahead of time, but the resolve is Connecticut State leadership should modify the Connecticut State academic leadership structure to retain campus-based departments or areas of study at each community college campus. Additionally, each campus-based academic department should be led by a faculty member elected to the role by faculty in the department at each campus. So would anyone like to make a motion to endorse this resolution that has been passed at least 10 colleges, and then we can discuss from there?
I'll make the motion.
I'll motion, Colleen.
All
I'll
right,
second that motion.
great. All right, any discussion on this?
It's an interesting, an important point. I mean, obviously there's a difference in the structure of small, medium, and large community colleges. And in some cases you have multidisciplinary departments, and in some you have single disciplinary departments. We tend to have single disciplinary departments at the level of the universities. But the role of department chairs as representatives of the faculty who elect them and as intermediaries between faculty as a body and the administration is really quite important. If only for the question of assigning classes, dealing with student complaints and problems. There's clearly an over-centralization that would occur with the elimination of department chairs.
And in consideration with faculty and folks who have served in this role, there are ways to organize it so that the chain of responsibility can remain with faculty, which is, the NETCHI standard, right? Responsibility for a curriculum. So as long as that possibility exists, even within the structure, we should pursue it. All right. I don't see everybody right now, but I don't see any hands. Anything further to say before we take a vote? All right. All in favor of endorsing the resolution on retaining faculty department chairs, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Attention, Diane.
All right. And it passes. Very nice. Thank you all. And then I believe there was one more thing on the agenda.
Well, accreditations of constituent colleges.
Ah, right. And actually, I mean, this really has been something that you've repeated over and over, David, so I don't know if you want to just kind of.
Yeah, it seems to me that, we had a meeting at one point on various alternative ways of organizing statewide public higher education systems. And there are many different ways of doing it. The way which the Ojaikin administration proposed was to create the CSCC with its accreditation and its federal finances and financial aid and so forth number, and eliminate the accreditations of the 12 constituent colleges. And it seems to me that we should be looking and examining more closely an alternative to that. CSCC, at least as far as I can tell, will be accredited. NESHI rather, is into a 5-year process, and I suspect they will continue and conclude it after 6 years. That said,
David,
it isn't
David,
clear to me that the
David, this is Mike.
CSCC has to
I'm interrupting
relinquish.
for just a second. Could you mute everybody who's not speaking?
Possibly.
There's a lot of noise coming through. Thanks.
I'm going to try. Hang on a second, because I'm going to have to get out of the sharing. So that's good. And mute all. Okay. Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Did I
Thank
mute
you.
myself? Okay. And so to conclude, really, I think we need to look at an alternative form of organization whereby there will be some central CSCC, but there would also remain, at least in a transitional basis and perhaps on a permanent basis, the accreditations of the 12 community colleges. It isn't clear to me, and I have to say I'm not a legal expert on this matter, and I haven't studied, how it was. These kinds of things have been done elsewhere, although it's stated that this is the largest consolidation being attempted in the country to maintain the accreditations of the individual community colleges during a transitional period, at least equal to the amount of time it's taken to create CSCC, which is 6 years, for a number of reasons. One, to avoid over-centralization and give proper play to what should be happening at the local level. And two, just in case CSCC doesn't work out. We've just seen that the regional presidents haven't worked out. Maybe other things are not going to work out. We don't know. I don't have a crystal ball on that. But we should have an insurance policy of keeping the accreditations of those 12 community colleges, even as CSCC itself is accredited. That was the point I wanted to make. And I don't know if that's possible, but it does seem to me that there's no necessity to relinquish the 12 accreditations when CSCC itself is accredited. So I'm just, putting that forward as an idea.
Great. Ron?
David, have you discussed that idea with any of the board members?
No, I haven't, but if you think it's at all interesting, I certainly will undertake to do so.
I mean, it does provide a back out option if this whole thing collapses. I don't know whether it's something that's workable legally. Would NECHI approve accreditation within accreditation? Because you have the umbrella institution, and then you have the satellites underneath. Would they do that? I mean, if so, then it's definitely a possibility. But I suspect that you'll find resistance, because what it suggests is a hint that this may not work out. And I don't think that the board is willing to entertain that possibility. But you know, I'd go for it in terms of talking to them about it.
Good, thanks.
And there have been some discussions even with legislators about the possibility, so. Lois? You're still muted, Lois.
I think this would be an interesting conversation. As long as it wasn't brought up, that my understanding is they're going to be using Capital Community College's OPEID number to retain financial aid. So that might be a
Mhm.
fly in the ointment. But I wouldn't bring it up.
And it may well be that financial aid will be handled centrally. That could be one of the functions that could be
Well,
done centrally.
I think if they have to go for a new OPEID number, they don't automatically get financial aid right away.
Mhm. Other questions? Well, I'll report back on any conversations that I have about that. And that's certainly an interesting point that you bring up, Lois, and so I'll bring that up as well.
All you, David, I mean, I guess I have to say, I am curious, how many of us have a professional day in addition to the Friday statewide meeting for the community colleges? Okay. Looks like just about all of us. What about Northwestern, Mike? Do you have professional day and Friday?
Where it's mandated, do you mean?
Yeah.
No, we're pretty cooperative, so everybody kind of shows up anyway because we're so small, honestly.
But you have something planned.
Can you be more specific? Because I mean, we have the CFT and all that. What do you mean exactly?
So on Friday, we have a statewide
Right.
thing run by Dr.
Right.
Maduco, and then on Thursday, we have for us, a gateway professional day.
Oh, we have it in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
I thought you meant another day on top.
Yeah, no, we have another day.
Oh, okay. No, just that one day right now.
Cool. All right, that's it for me. I mean, we haven't had many board meetings except for the quick executive meeting that happened, executive committee meeting that happened last week that I'm sure you'll cover, David. So
Yeah, that'll be on the
yeah.
COVID.
Mhm. All
Okay.
you.
Then we'll go on to the situation at the universities. And the first one we wanted to discuss was the question of the situation at Western. And I know that Ritua is here now. Can I pass it on to you to present to us?
Thank you, David. I prepared some slides actually. Do you mind if I share my screen?
No, I will try to make sure that you can. Let me see now. Can you do that?
Done.
There we go. Excellent.
Can you still see it?
Yes,
Okay.
doing a better job than I do.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, I decided to use some slides just to make sure that I cover all the points I want to make. So thank you very much for this opportunity to inform you about what's going on at Western. So as most of you know, I'm sure that so in the last 10 years, the reserves at Western dropped by more than $26 million. And this was revealed to us in early April, and by the administration, and they also announced plan to hold a 2-day retreat in May. So we faculty met together There are about, I think, 60 to 70 people who came to each meeting before that. And also I want to mention that May 13th, so we had a virtual meeting with Chang, who actually stated Western would not get any help from the CSU system. Thank you very much. So this is just, I took this from the open forum that we had in early April. This was presented to us by the Western CFO, Beatrice Favre. So you see here, Western compared to the other CSUs have just dropped the reserves precipitously. So, so we did have that retreat, the 2-day retreat. Basically, it's very clear there's a declining morale of faculty and staff were angry, still are. And we pushed back for accountability, transparency, and collective decision making. And actually, the next day, we at Senate, we passed a vote of no confidence for John Clark, the president at that time, who, well, he said he would go on and lead. So about a week after that, we met with management, the administration, and union leaders. I think we have 5 unions on campus. AUP and SWOP are the biggest by far, to establish these summer working groups. So these are 6 working groups to evaluate each area of university operations. So academic programs, Gen Ed, retention, facilities and scheduling, administrative programs. So basically anything that is non-academic, and financial oversight. We had to really, really push to have this financial oversight group established because the administration resisted. And they still resist in a lot of ways. And so more than 100 faculty and staff we are working together throughout the summer, the last last 2.5 months now. So to basically evaluate, to examine what's going on and analyze all aspects of operations and to develop short-term and long-term solution ideas. So on June 16, Clark resigned and Barron was installed as interim president. And apparently he's committed for 2 years. So these are the challenges. Well, first of all, the BOR balance Western budget for this fiscal year. Now, then Barron met with union leaders, and from what I heard, the union leaders of the other unions told me that the first 2, I think, is the clerical workers and maintenance, facilities and maintenance workers. He met with them separately, and he informed them for plans for more budget cuts and outsourcing. And obviously, this was a shock to those union leaders. Now, he met, I think the next week, a few days later, he met with leaders of SWOV, and he greatly softened his tone. We decided, so when they approached me, I told them that we are not interested in meetings with just, behind closed doors VIP meetings. We wanted to meet with him, with members, all members of AUP, and even better, all stakeholders at the university. Barron refused, so we didn't meet. So these are what the causes, what management said the causes are: declining enrollment, higher labor costs, and the fact that we have 2 campuses. So declining enrollment, right now, I think latest data shows that we are down 11% in FTE. But I would say, that's everyone, all schools colleges and universities have across the country and Northeast, whatever, they face the same problem, right? I mean, maybe not as much, but maybe even more. With labor costs, it's true that Fairfield County, actually the cost of living in Fairfield County is 37% higher than the average. And this is really significant because the cost of living in the counties where the other CSUs are is significantly lower. But this is more because of cost of living, not because we are so greedy, because obviously we have the same contract, Western faculty and Western staff with the unions at the other CSUs. With two campuses, the problem is actually that the problem with that reason is that we have had two campuses since mid 1990s. So why weren't we in financial trouble before? Now, of course, we workers think that the biggest reason is mismanagement. A lot of, I have to say, boneheaded decisions. And also there's a lack of transparency, there's a lack of communication, and there is a lack of shared governance. So looking forward, we understand that we must work together in pushing back against management. And by this, I mean the unions on campus and also with other unions in the system. Management so far, this is the main problem that with the working groups. Some of the working groups, in fact, many of them, but especially the one on financial oversight, need financial data. They have refused to provide financial data to us. And in fact, Barron went on record to say that he thinks we don't understand financial data. So they're not going to give it to us because we're not going to understand it, which is, of course, a slap in the face, knowing that we have accounting faculty, professors, finance professors, math professors, economists, and others who have the expertise in understanding numbers, and all of us, even I mean any of us, we understand. I mean we work with our own personal finances, so that's just a horrible excuse. We also think that we need to work with students, their families, and the local community, and we want to inform the public also through speaking up at BOR meetings, at meetings like this one, interviews with reporters, op-eds, town hall meetings with local politicians. I think Julie Kushner is going to have a town hall meeting this Sunday, so I'm going there. So this is really what these are our ideas so far, but I think we think it will be great if to involve other, of course, workers and our colleagues across the CSUs and at the community colleges in the CS system, definitely. And lastly, I would like to say that that it's critical that we need to fight back in this fiscal year until June 2023, because the plan is clear that they're going to implement more budget austerity for us. And in fact, one colleague of mine thinks, he theorized that it's going to be what I think the term in biology is apoptosis, which means that they're just going to starve us, and then they're going to let us implode. And if that is the case, that is unacceptable, because Western is is the only public higher ed institution west of Waterbury. So outside of this tiny branch campus of Naugatuck Valley in downtown Danbury. So it's crucial that this university will not just go on, but also thrive for the local community and, you know, and the greater Danbury, which is Danbury and the 14 towns surrounding it. So that's what I'll stop sharing here. Okay, so yeah, we look for ideas, comments, questions.
Okay, I see Lois, then I see Colina. Go ahead, Lois.
A couple of comments. What was the rationale behind Cheng saying that you wouldn't be getting any support from them? Isn't that why they are there?
I agree with you, Lois. He said that if I think he said something like we can't jeopardize the other campuses, and Western needs to, I'm paraphrasing here, that it's our own fault, and so we need to find a way to survive ourselves.
It wouldn't have been your own fault because the system office would have overseen and been seeing this. But I'm going to go to something else. You said that they wouldn't give you financial data.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you be able to FOIA that? This is a public institution.
Yes, we have floated that idea for a while. The problem is not, so by we, I mean across the unions. The problem is we're not on the same page about that. I think FOIA itself is not going to, because it's a lengthy process. So it's not going to solve anything in the meantime. It is, I do agree that I think we should start it, right? Because that sends a message. At the very least, it sends a message. But the others, I don't know, the problem is the others are to a large extent not ready. And then when Barron came in, then they said, maybe let's try with this one. Maybe we'll get better response from this one. And of course, it's the same.
Colina, then Ron.
So I know you're short on information now, but what do you see as the potential resolutions here? Like say you found the information, would it be insisting that the system play a role in supporting, you know, Western through some sort of recovery period? Or I know you're going to strengthen shared governance. Do you see a path forward for that? Do you need the information to pursue that avenue in terms of having more shared decision making? You know, what do you see as as solutions here?
So a lot of this financial data, actually, they are publicly available. For example, from the meeting agendas, the BOR Finance Committee, and so on. What we ask for is the drill down data. For example, what are the expenses of you know, the admissions department, the enrollment management department, so that kind of data. We were able to get the academic department data, but not the non-academic departments. So we see it, especially in the Group 6 on financial oversight, as working with real data, with the data that financial data, the detailed data is necessary to find out what's going on. So our goals are in that group, actually Group 6, are first to do basically forensic accounting, what actually happened, because none of them would tell us what happened. They kept saying this declining enrollment and high labor cost. And the second is to actually do cost-benefit analysis of all the ideas developed by the other working groups. So then we need those data to understand that, to be able to do cost-benefit analysis. But that's the $1 billion question, right, Karina? Is where do we go from here, right? And this is the challenging part. I think the most important thing is to push back and to force management to have collective decision making. Now, of course, we all know that doesn't mean that whatever 1,000 workers at Western are going to meet every single day trying to decide on everything. But the fact that they still don't let us do that, they are not going to give that power to us, and that and when all this time, yes, I mean it's this managerial decisions that put us in this hole. And I'd like to say also to what Lois pointed out earlier, that the BOR is as much to blame on this, because they actually they approved our budget every single year for those years. So they knew, and they didn't say anything. And also NACHI, we are in the middle. We are preparing for NACHI accreditation visit, which is going to happen for next year. And I'm on the committee to do the self-study for NACHI. And I read the interim report, the 5-year report that came out, that was done in 2018. There is no mention of that. And right there, we already lost 50% of the reserves, initial reserves in 2011. And the NACHI sent a response letter to that report. They said, oh, everything looked great. So nobody said anything, basically. What I think was, going back to what your question, Karina, I think the most important is the collective decision making, and that is the key to get this university back on the path of financial solvency. I don't know what it looks like. It could very well be that Western is going to be significantly smaller. We already did not fill 73 positions, open positions, saving $11 million. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure many of those positions, we really need them. This university has been cut to the bone, but I'm still learning this. I mean, we're all still learning what's going on, how this university operates. And it's costly, of course, to operate a university. So this is challenging. This is one of the challenges. But we really think that collective decision making is key, because we can't, this is our university. It's not management's university. In fact, many of them are careerists who will just move on to their next whatever adventure. We are here because we invested in this university.
Ron, then Lois again.
Hi, I represent Naugatuck Valley Community College, and so we know that we have many partnerships with Western, and we also send more students to Western than we send to any other college in the state. And so I just want to express that our faculty are here to support you in whatever you need. If there's anything you think getting Naugatuck Valley Community College's faculty involved in your efforts in any way, just please contact me and let me know, and our faculty will be there to support you.
Thank you, Ron. I will definitely contact you because we always, I mean, we always think that it's a no-brainer to work with Naugatuck Valley Community College and of course the other, CSUs and community colleges. But given, yeah, I mean, as you said, many of students who have gone through your college then go to Western. And anybody at Western can tell you this, that our students, graduates who went through the community college system are some of the best.
Lois?
Number one, have you thought about filing a complaint with NETCHI based on the mishandling of not only the mishandling of the finances over the last 10 years, but the fact that the system office, CSU, whatever they want to call themselves, oversees all this, did nothing about it, and now is telling you that they're not going to support you in any way.
That is, I didn't think of that exactly, that specific idea. So thank you for mentioning that, Lois. I have thought about at least writing to NETCHI about this, yes, and also writing to or talking to reporters about this, and that this is, we lied to NETCHI, basically. I guess the concern here, the risk here is our accreditation. I know it's not going to be, it's not going to be an immediate unaccreditation, or whatever you want to call it. But what is the risk here, right? It's I think it's also important to point out that NETCHI itself just looked the other way, and is that something that they are willing to admit? But yeah, that's definitely one, yeah, that we should think about doing that.
Yeah, I would kind of focus it on the fact of the mishandling of the money by Clark, or by the finances by Clark and so forth, and the fact that the system office is an oversight and is supposed to be aware of and helping out and so forth, and they're doing none of the above. As a matter of fact, they're letting you hang out to dry, it sounds like. And there is a process. If you go on the NETCHI website, there is a process for filing a complaint. And believe me, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've become really good at filing stuff with NETCHI. So if you need any help, let me know.
Okay, thank you, Lois.
Kalina, and then I'll recognize myself.
Sure. So just to be clear, this is a president who was appointed by the BOR, and I believe the BOR is responsible for evaluating presidents yearly. Is that right? I feel like it's so strange that the entity that is ultimately responsible for the diagnosed issue here, the publicly diagnosed issue, could say that they are not going to help past the end of this fiscal year. Just even not from a NETCHI standpoint, but from a, the western part of the state standpoint, right? It's a bit outrageous. So I guess just a comment, but I think it's worth the interest of reporters, right?
Oh yes, definitely. I do want to reach out to these reporters I've talked to update them about what's going on. Especially because there's a lot, this resistance and from the administration, and the fact, as you said, that there is this, many of us have realized, right, that this is, the system office, the BOR is definitely, to blame for a lot of this, and Nachi, yes, and the fact that there is a lack of support, and they went on record to say that, that's very troubling. Yeah.
I have just a couple of comments because actually I'm on the finance committee. And, I think it's been known for several years, more than several years, that the reserves at Western have been declining. And finally, as you say, gone to below zero. Now, there is a reserve at the system office in the tens of millions of dollars. So that is usually not taken into account as to how that could be used in an emergency situation, such as might be the case, such as certainly the case at Western. But the cleaner brings up a good point. It is a indirect consequence of the Ojakian administration monofocus on consolidation of community colleges that the statutory requirement that the Board of Regents look into the distinct missions of the colleges and universities, and therefore look after as well and into the universities, has been left aside. And that includes, for example, whether it's yearly or biannually, I'm not quite sure, assessment of the presidents. It's only with the arrival of Terence Cheng as president of the CSCU that apparently an assessment has been done of the Western president, and he resigned and has been replaced. So that's one point that I want to make. The other point is that the new funding formula, and I think I spoke about this a couple of meetings ago, there was a new funding formula which was adopted by the board on recommendation from the finance committee, but really ultimately from the system office, which did reduce the budgets both of Southern and Central and increase that of Western. In fact, the figures that I had was that Central, their basic allocation, exclusive of any money coming in from here, the Higher Education Relief Fund, had been reduced by 1.35 million. Eastern had got an increase of very minimal, 200,000. Southern had a decrease of 3 million. That was significant. And Western had an increase of nearly 4 million. So, there some effort had been made, although at the expense of two of the other universities, rather than say the reserve fund at the system office, to supplement the budget at Western. But clearly that's insufficient given the amount that you've mentioned, the 73 job cuts for a total of 11 million, of which most of that is from academic faculty and staff supporting academic faculty. Very little of it is from top executives, even though the report indicated that the board had commissioned from Neshmi as opposed to Neshi, indicated that there was a top-heavy administration at Western. The other point that I just want to make is that this is not unique in the history of the Connecticut State University system. I remember when I came in 1989, by 1992, which was a recession year, as I remember, I could be plus or minus one here because as a philosopher, I'm allowed some leeway with numbers. There was talk of closing Eastern. Eastern was in dire financial shape. David Carter, who had been at Eastern for quite a number of years, took over as president, and he did an excellent job of restoring the financial viability and public confidence in the university, which has ever since advertised itself, I'm not quite sure if it's accurate, as the foremost liberal arts public university in Connecticut. That said, the situation that Western is facing is not a unique one, but I do want to make one last point, which is that I don't want to see this become a wedge issue for the consolidation of the universities. And that's exactly what the Ojakian administration had done when I think it was Gateway and one other of the community colleges had basically gone through their reserves. And the argument then is, well, either we're going to have to close one of these campuses, or we're going to consolidate them all. And of course, we see the result, a top-heavy administration, bloated, to say the least, with people at the central level. So I think that's a further concern. And I think, I want to thank you, Ritua, for your presentation. And let's keep this as a regular agenda item. This is, quite a serious matter. It is something that can be resolved. But I think part of what you say, given the expertise, the faculty expertise that you have there, from accounting and economics, yourself included, finance and so forth, there should be a considerable faculty input into figuring out what has gone wrong and what needs to be done in order to straighten it out in the long term.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so with that, we will return to this agenda item at our next meeting as well. So Ritua, you'll be a regular invitee. The next item on the agenda is the question of COVID-19. Okay, and I'm going to try and share again the resolution. I hope this is it. Are you seeing this? Original resolution from the Executive Committee of August 19. Right. So the special meeting that the Executive Committee of the Board held last week, or actually on the 10th, had, as far as I can tell, at least publicly, one item on the agenda, and that was a resolution on COVID measures. And as you may recall, the FAC had passed a resolution, which I had sent to them in July, from our July meeting, saying, with classes about to recommence at the end of August, it's necessary to have a clear public statement on what measures will be taken with respect to COVID-19 and such education and availability of vaccines as is necessary to implement that policy. And we'd also asked for data about the efficacy of the policy adopted in July of 2021, data which has not been made available to us. For example, the percentage of vaccinations at the various campuses, the percentage of medical and non-medical exemptions, the incidence of virus infection, and so forth. The Executive Committee on August 10th approved this resolution. The whereases, I'll skip, but what they had said here, and I hope you can see it, is resolved. The policy regarding COVID-19 immunization requirements for students, that is is hereby amended to suspend its use until such time that executive orders concerning mitigation strategies are issued. And I think by executive orders, they meant, although it's not explicit here, I think they meant executive of the state, that is to say, from the governor. So that basically what this resolution did was, if that was the intended interpretation, and I will make that proviso, to relinquish responsibility at the system level and push that forward to the level of the governor and the executive of the state. I sent a note at that point to them saying, as you can see here under 2, my concern is that there may not be circumstances such as there may be circumstances such as a local or regional outbreak at CSCU which fall below the statewide level requiring an executive order from the governor, but which would require CSCU mitigation action of a required kind. As a result, the resolution should mention that the president of the CSCU or those institutional leaders delegated to act can take additional required measures for local or regional, and I should add system-wide situations different from prevailing state-wide conditions and independently of an executive order from the governor, so long as these measures are short of any which would necessarily require a gubernatorial order for execution. I didn't get a response to that, but I didn't expect one. Nonetheless, I think that at least one member of the executive committee was thinking along parallel lines, because Regent Bloom, who is chair of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, in the minutes of the meeting, added a second resolve. I mean, the modification was to specify the date of the original COVID-19 resolution, which is helpful for keeping track of it, to indicate it is suspended until further notice, and then to add, and be it further resolved that the BOR restates its charge to the CSU president to continue exercising this authority with the input of institutional campus leaders across CSU institutions and other state agencies, partners, and resources to adapt to and evolve with local, regional, and statewide conditions as related to the virus in ways that will allow CSU to enact mitigation strategies with both broad approaches and targeted tactics to address the needs and circumstances of our students, faculty, and staff on our campuses. Now, I understand that Regent Bloom is a lawyer by training, so that was, I think, nicely formulated. And I think that does significantly add to the resolution, since it does return to the CSU executive, CSU leadership, and to the institutional leaderships responsibility for taking specific measures. The second issue which came up was a number of people sent me emails with concern about the public health emergency, which has been declared both worldwide and in this country with respect to monkeypox. And that is not addressed by this resolution. So that is the current status of the matter. I will continue to ask for the data so that we can make a proper sum up of what actually happened in the various phases and stages. I mean, I see that, for example, the new director of the CDC has done that for the CDC and has come up with a number of significant shortcomings and reorganization consequent upon that. I think that as well, though I think we can say that in general, we got through the pandemic at CSU with a minimum of incidence of the disease, and significant measures were in fact taken. But can we improve on those? I certainly think we can. And the advent of this monkeypox, which may or may not be a problem, but could be one in particular at the universities, where there are students living in close contact in the residences, where students, athletes are participating in contact sports. That could be a specific area of problem. But we see how easily, unfortunately, a new virus can arise. And so we need to do a proper sum up of the lessons from the intense period of COVID measures, suspended or not. So those are my comments on that issue. If there aren't any further comments on that, is there any concern at all out there about monkeypox? Or boosters for COVID? I mean, there's really an issue, an immediate issue is information, which I think is probably going to be made available. And I understand that there will be COVID vaccine clinics at the various campuses. Now, I'm going to find out and make sure that that is happening at all the universities and all the community colleges, because sometimes at the level of the community colleges, the argument is made, well, let's let the local or the regional authorities handle that. So I don't know what's happening at the level of the community colleges, and I will certainly make an effort to find out. Sorry. And then there's the question of education. Without a proper campaign of education, I'm not quite clear as to why students will, in fact, get a booster. I think a lot of people figure, oh, well, I've already been vaccinated. There was a mandate. I did it. Certainly, we know that something like 90% of students were vaccinated. But the question here is, we also know that in terms of the Omicron, and especially the BA.5, I think I have that correctly in my variant, requires as well, if individuals are to escape the worst effects, further boostering. And information is not sufficient. We need education so that the students, and for that matter, faculty and staff, understand why boostering, which is recommended and not required, should be done. Right? And that's important. I think my impression is that the folks at the system office look at it as, well, if we sent information, i.e. an email, and we organized or paid for a vaccine clinic at a campus, then we've done all we have to do. But we're an educational institution, and we need an educational campaign to properly inform people and properly educate them as to why they need to continue to be boosted. Otherwise, I'm afraid we're going to see a lot of folks on campus who are not properly immunized. Consider the following: just at my university, student newspaper, through Freedom of Information, I requested that data, and it was not provided to me. But the student newspaper got through Freedom of Information that something like 37 students had got medical exemptions, but well over 850 had gotten automatic non-medical examinations. Nearly 10% of students were not vaccinated with no medical reason for that. And so we have that a proportion of those students are returning to campus. I mean, some have graduated, some may have decided not to come back, but certainly a significant proportion of those are coming back. And secondly, we have the incoming freshman class or fresh person class, and it's not clear whether they're vaccinated at all. Now, they may have been vaccinated under mandates at the high schools, but I don't think that anybody is tracking it anymore. So there are significant issues that I think we need to continue to look into, both in terms of summing up the experience, finding out what's happening now, and planning for the future. Lee, is there any further comment? If not, we'll go on to the last agenda item, which is the Faculty Advisory Committee conference, which is a regular item as we're sort of talking about what could be the topics and any planning that we want to do for it. I don't know if we're in a position to say anything additional today or whether that should simply go on to the next agenda's meeting. Yes, Diane.
So a few of us have met over the last couple of weeks, Carmen and Mary Beth and I, to kind of talk about the ideas and brainstorm a little bit about how we can get the conference up and rolling again. We had a couple of ideas that we thought we would just present to the group and see how people felt about it. We realize we're really short on time to get something together for the fall semester, but perhaps doing something a little bit more low risk, more virtual and more internal at first for the fall semester, something that's really close to the people that are on not only this committee, but our colleagues. So maybe something about the consolidation or ACME or something that's very relevant to what's going on right now, and do a virtual type of event where we can invite colleagues from our campuses. Wouldn't really cost much because it's virtual. And because, as you just spoke about, David, the public health emergencies are still fluid, not knowing what we can kind of do in terms of on-ground type of events, maybe use the fall semester as like a teaser to bring something then the spring semester, either on-ground or hybrid. So a couple of us were just kind of thinking, brainstorming, and wanted to present that to the group.
Kalina?
Yeah, so I'm so glad you all met and did that, Diana. And I know that both Lois and I had some ideas for folks that would make a good, whether it's a speaker or members of a panel. So, I mean, maybe let's meet soon and see if we can put something together.
Yeah, I think, the thought was that let's just get something going so that we can kind of re-energize this idea. And then hopefully in the spring semester, we're in a better place financially. And, in terms of what we can accommodate on ground and get back to some sort of in-person type of event. But it doesn't have to be more than, an hour or 45 minutes of a presentation, a topic of interest, just to kind of get us back on track with that.
Yeah, that really sounds good. So let's put that again on the agenda for the 9th, and let's at that point fix a date. So that would sort of give us an objective, right? And maybe you and Kalina and your group can meet between now and then and sort of come up with a specific proposal. Okay. Is there other business?
I do have a
Yes, Lois?
question.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question. Did you ever get a response from whoever about the statement in the introduction to the strategic plan about how wonderful the FAC, the Faculty Advisory Council, is and has supplied us with tremendous input and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, my email landed with a resounding thud. No, I got no response.
Well,
It was
Just-
received.
just so everybody's aware, that is going as part of the documentation to NETCHI, the September 1st report. They've got to submit that document with that statement, and it is going to NETCHI.
That is we're talking now about the draft strategic plan.
The
for
draft
CSCC.
strategic plan is part of the documentation that is going to NETCHI for the September 1 report.
Okay, hang on
And
a second.
that's- Is that because they're submitting the draft plan before the input that they requested from the community?
I I don't know if they're going to revise it. But it's in the draft.
Yeah,
The draft of the September 1st report that I have seen has the strategic plan draft in there as an appendix. And obviously it includes the statement about the wonderfulness of the Faculty Advisory Council in giving us all that wonderful input.
yeah, I think you can see my email now, which I sent, and it was sent on July 21st. And I'm not going to read it all to you. It quotes from the statement on the first 2 pages of that draft strategic plan. The inclusiveness of this process cannot be overstated or underestimated. More than 50 people have served on the committee, and membership consists of faculty, staff, and administrators with representatives from the campuses and CT State. Importantly, students were also served as council members. We are thankful to the council members. So they're talking about a council. They then go on to remark, we want to also express our deep appreciation to the Faculty Advisory Council, to the Board of Regents, who provided honest and earnest feedback during the development of the plan. Each time we engaged the FAC, we got useful feedback from them, and the council consequently incorporated their comments into our planning work. So I note in the email I sent, as chair of the FAC, I can state without hesitation that this is simply false. In the first place, the FAC is the Faculty Advisory Committee to the BOR, not the Faculty Advisory Council. But I can understand in passing that they're talking about themselves as a council, and so there was a slip of the pen, and they call us a council, although that's obviously not accurate. This might be considered as a mere slip, which is repeated twice, or simple ignorance. But the authors of the document compound the error with the claim that the FAC, however designated, provided substantial, quote, honest and earnest feedback, comments which were, quote, subsequently incorporated into that planning work. This is not the case. While we did invite, at their request, and on one occasion each, Tanya Milner, past chair, and Terry Brown, co-chair, to meetings of the FAC, we indicated at both meetings that the content of their presentations were inadequate to anything we could consider to be a framework for a strategic plan. In particular, we noted the lack of any reference to the determining role of faculty in developing curriculum and pedagogy, the lack of guarantee for the continuation of the existing colleges, vague testimony without content about shared terminology, without content about shared governance and more. Not only is the document fundamentally flawed as to content or lack thereof, the FAC never had any follow-up or saw, never mind commented on the draft plan. Therefore, to claim that faculty in any significant way participated in the draft is unsubstantiated, and the further claim that the FAC contributed in any meaningful way to the draft is incorrect. If this were just a one-off of the matter, it might be less significant than it is. To the contrary, the problems illustrate a strategy that has been persistently used by the system office, claiming faculty participation in committees from which faculty have withdrawn or merely attended on one or two occasions, and then claiming, as has been done above, that dozens or more faculty have participated in preparing a document which most have never seen or approved. I note earlier as well that in their list of 40 to 50 people who had participated, they did not indicate the status of any of them, not the institution from which they came, nor whether they were students, faculty, or staff. And then that was further obscuring the representative or unrepresentative nature of their own council. So that can be, that's part of, I'll make it part of the minutes of this meeting. And I thank you, Lois, for reminding me of that. I should have mentioned it in the report.
I think we need to consider a response to Netchie
Mhm.
explaining that.
Yes, if this is being sent to Neshi, I think I did send it around to everybody on the FAC. If not, I'll send it again.
Yeah,
Along
David,
with the,
I was just going to say, I don't remember receiving that. And if you wouldn't mind sending it to all of us, that was what I had
I'll
my
do
hand
that.
up about. Thank you very much.
Kalina?
Yeah, and I'll just say that if it's going in this form without modification, if it's going in the draft form without modification, then I guess they're sending it that way. But if they did receive feedback and modify it, I will say that, did anybody try to use the feedback form for the strategic plan? Because I had trouble using it, and I'll just say that I did drop the ball in some respect in specifically giving that feedback, even if this email was received. So just that, because it's kind of disingenuous to send something to the community asking for feedback and corrections and then send it to Netchie in advance of that. And I don't know that that is what happened. I'm just saying that I did not send this feedback to that form in advance of this Netchie thing. So,
Well, we'll double check on that and find out exactly what is being sent, whether that draft is being sent or some modified version or not being sent at all.
Well, but, and let me be clear, what I have seen is a draft of the September 1st response, not the final, obviously not the final version.
Well, I'll send along the draft that I received, and then I will send include with that the email I sent to the leadership of the system. Another item agenda for next meeting. There's always more. Other business? Then I think we've come to that point where I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Those in favor of adjourning, well, next meeting is, I believe, September the 9th, but I will double check. So it's not all that that far away. Those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. I'm glad that we had a quorum this late in the summer, and I think it's a good thing that we've continued to do our work throughout the summer. I want to stop the recording now.